Good morning from the historic County Hall in central London, where the tides of political power and devolution have washed in and out from Westminster for almost 100 years. My name is Christopher Hammond. I'm Chief Exec of UK 100, a network of 112 climate ambitious councils, all committed to going further and faster on net zero and clean air. I'm joined here today by Chris Skidmore, the head of Mission Zero Coalition and former minister who signed the UK's commitment to net zero by 2050 into law. Today, we're launching our new report titled Zero In, Accelerating Climate Action, which is a collaborative effort between UK 100 and Mission Zero Coalition. Aside from the report, we'll be introducing our local climate pledge, taking the heat out of local climate action. This is for councils across the country who want to take a stand against misinformation and have better local climate plays. It's going to be a busy political year with local elections only 2 weeks away. So this is a good moment to zero in on local delivery. But first, I'd like to bring in Chris, who's going to be talking about some of the progress with that groundbreaking Futurist Local report by the Coalition and also Powers in Place by UK 100. Over to you, Chris.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thanks to everyone for joining on the launch today. We've got several hundred people, which is fantastic. What's more important is that everyone coming together on this call is from all corners of the UK. Some fantastic geographic representation. And it's with that in mind, we've decided to publish this Zero In report today, together with a pledge taking the heat out of local climate action. I know we'll be discussing later, and everyone on this call will have the opportunity not only to read the report, which I think will be sort of put up in the chat box, it's now gone live, but also to sign the pledge, because this is absolutely critical. We've got 2 weeks today until the local elections, local and regional elections, in which we've got 2,600 councillors being elected, 10 metro mayors. That makes up roughly about 44% of the UK is having an election. And the Mission Zero review, the Net Zero review that I had the opportunity to chair, was very clear that if we're going to succeed in delivering not just our net zero commitments for 2050, but critically our national determined contributions that we made to the UN for 2030 of 68% emissions reduction, that local authorities must have a critical seat around the table. Those elected on May the 2nd will be the stewards and the guardians of ensuring that we actually succeed in meeting our 2030 commitments. Those elected will serve a term up until 2028, 2029. So it's absolutely critical now that those who are coming into government, seeking election, also recognise we've got to move beyond the promises and the pledges that it's fantastic. We've had 340 local and regional authorities make those net zero commitments to declare a climate crisis. But as the Zero In report shows, that only 67% of local authority officers are actually confident that those commitments can be reached. And on a day where we've seen the Scottish Government potentially row back on some of their interim net zero targets, it's absolutely critical now that we don't overpromise and underdeliver, that we actually now focus solely on delivery and implementation, which is what this report seeks to achieve. It sets out not only what the government needs to do to empower authorities. This is really important because when we look at actually our emissions reductions and the landscape of that portfolio of reductions, 82% of emissions reductions that is possible have some form of local authority involvement. Actually, a third of all emissions reductions that are required are potentially the direct responsibility of local authorities. And the Mission Zero report that came out last year, it was really clear. It's not just about government, it's actually about getting away from government, empowering local and regional authorities to be the authors of their own net zero journeys. One of the 10-year missions was actually to have a local big bang to actually devolve powers to ensure that local authorities are best placed to take decisions. Now, some of those decisions, involve planning decisions. Obviously, some of those require the government to step up to be able to change legislation, to be able to change regulation. There are other things the government do now to ensure that local authorities are best placed to take those decisions. Why? because actually delivering locally on net zero isn't just a way of how we can achieve our emissions targets faster. We can achieve them far more efficiently. UKRI published an accelerating net zero delivery report last year, which demonstrated we could actually achieve net zero far cheaper, £140 billion cheaper, if we handed over power to deliver on net zero to regional and local actors. At the same time, the government has committed, in words at least, to empowering local authorities, but we've not seen that follow through. And what the Zero In report tries to set out today for those councillors seeking a mandate on the 2nd of May is also to demonstrate that we need a local net zero delivery framework that is far more engaging with local authorities. That also we need a net zero data platform that also allows for local authorities to be able to match and manage and understand how they're reducing their emissions far better than they can at the moment. Data sets we have out there are far too opaque, and we need government to be able to enable local authorities to make the changes that they wish to. The report also sets out, and I know that sort of this will be discussed later, there are already opportunities for partnerships that local authorities can take forwards to actually drive forward and accelerate local climate action delivery. Local area energy partnerships that have been pioneered by the Energy Systems Catapult are already now going to take place across the whole of Wales. We've got potentially up to a third of local authorities signing up to these. But the government really hasn't rode in behind local area energy plans in the way that they should do. They haven't provided a standardisation and a sense by which local authorities know how to map out properly against that benchmark against other local authorities and other regional areas. But these plans could be instrumental and catalytic in actually bringing in inward private investment. A report recently demonstrated that the net zero economy has grown by 9% over the past year. And for every pound spent on net zero delivery, it's unlocked downstream at least £2 of additional benefit. We can see that across the pond in the United States, where every dollar that has been spent of public money on the Inflation Reduction Act has unlocked $8.47 of private investment. We've begun to see some fantastic examples of best practice emerge in the UK. For instance, in my own local area of Bristol, the Bristol City Leap has now potentially unlocked £1 billion worth of investment in direct foreign investment for a Boston company, Ameresco. And we'd love to be able to see these City Leap initiatives, and 3CI has suggested also that we create a model of City Leaps that could be replicated across the country. And that's the point here, is that local authorities, regional authorities know what needs to happen and when it needs to happen now. And if we can ensure that those on the ground are empowered to be able to deliver, we're going to succeed in making net zero happen far faster. I'm delighted that UK 100 and Vision Zero Covenant come together to produce this report now. It sets out very clearly what needs to happen from government, also what local authorities can do now on the ground, getting on with it. We hope that those that are elected on May the 2nd will look at this report and be able to recognise that they can commit to a local area energy plan, they can commit to some of the changes that the report sets out. But also the pledge that will also be online for everyone to sign is really important. I know we'll be speaking about this. How do we take the heat out of local climate action and delivery? I resigned in January over the petroleum licensing bill because I could no longer condone the actions of my government, which were turning against net zero. But nevertheless, I now stand as someone who's independent, who's willing to work with every political party. I made that commitment. I said that in my resignation letter. I'm happy to work with mayors such as Andy Burnham or Sadiq Khan to be able to demonstrate that regardless of your political party, we're all in this together. We've got to be able to commit, if we're going to succeed by 2030, on delivering on emissions reduction. Carbon dioxide knows no political colours. And it's important now that we step up and have that mature and responsible debate. Yes, we can disagree over details, and it's absolutely right when it comes to local authorities. Every local authority is different. Every local authority has different priorities. But nevertheless, Let us recognise now and on the 2nd of May that there are issues far too important to politicise, issues that are far too vital to get right, to delay because we are simply disagreeing as political parties. So my message to you, regardless of whichever political party that you belong to, please sign the pledge and please look at the zero as a potential template for how we can deliver tomorrow and our emissions reduction commitments for 2030. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for the work that Mission Zero Coalition are doing to really advocate for that local net zero transition. It's clear from your speech and the 2 previous reports that we've had that local authorities are those vital partners in delivering our national climate goals. The net zero transition, as Chris said, can be delivered faster, fairer, and cheaper if delivered in partnership with local authorities. And that is being increasingly recognised by all of the political parties in Westminster and civil servants in Whitehall. But the powers and the funding needs to match those kind of words that we're getting. Moving to clean energy, sustainable transport, and all our homes is going to transform how we live, but getting there won't be easy. There are numerous challenges we need to overcome, and Chris set some of those out, and for a full kind of suite, look at the report. But one I'd like to highlight is how the absolute need for better public engagement to avoid this rise in misinformation that we're seeing across the country. Unless we make a concerted effort to bring our communities along with us, people are going to fear and resent the change. Others will and are going to step into that vacuum of communicating that change, the perceived benefits and the drawbacks. There are, of course, as Chris said, debates to be had about net zero and its implementation. That's all part of the democratic process. But these conversations need to be civil, rational, and evidence-based. Spreading false information and chilling rhetoric damages all of our politics. It closes down debate, it excludes people. In extreme cases, it drives people out of political office or from seeking it in the first place. This is becoming a growing percent of our members have had some form of coordinated dis or misinformation campaign against them. This sometimes ranges from the comical to the chilling, with intimidation or violence against those just seeking to carry out council strategies and interventions. Of course, there are some questionable decisions taken on specific interventions, and mistakes inevitably are being made by leaders and councils, which is why public scrutiny and accountability will lead to a better transition. But it's only if we're able to harness a complete set of perspectives and people aren't purposely being drowned out. So to do this with accurate and accessible information in the language and in the forums where these discussions need to take place, councils need to be proactive. They need to be speaking with honesty and collaborating openly about their plans. They need to go out and engage using technology and deliberative methods, not relying on consultation forms hidden behind impenetrable council websites. If we involve residents and businesses in this discussion, give them some say in shaping the transition, we can empower people. Ultimately, if we do not slow this misinformation and the culture wars, misinformation will slow down the net zero delivery. Combating it is not going to be an easy task, especially in a general election year. We've got the rise of new technologies and geopolitical international conflicts. So it's going to require local leaders to be those calm, pragmatic voices who are going to continue to deliver for their communities. And with the 2024 local elections, it will be a defining moment for climate action, as Chris set out. So councillors and candidates seeking office need to reaffirm that they are leading the way, which is why this pledge is being launched today in partnership between our 2 organisations. Whether it be recognising that the approach to scrutiny or the type of intervention rolled out, councillors can be that vanguard against local action becoming the next frontier in a culture war. The sector has shown how quickly it can galvanise and quickly embed climate action into their organisations. 340 councils have declared climate emergencies, and they set themselves goals exceeding the national 2050 target. And this was driven by a strong political focus of local leaders and councillors. So the pledge opens up today, and we've had around 20 leaders from urban and rural authorities already commit to signing up. These are leaders from Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem and Green administrations, all joining together. Local leaders have got a really exciting story to tell, a change that's going to elevate communities, not push them down, deliver new jobs and investment into areas that are already crying out for change. It's going to make us healthier and warmer. Climate action can be an issue that unites us, not divides us. So it's really important that this pledge gets out there far and wide. I'd like to thank those already who have signed up to the pledge and encourage you to share it. I'm now going to hand over to one of those important leaders in local government, Cllr Izzi Seccombe, leader of Warwickshire County Council. Izzi.
Thank you very much. That's really great introduction, and I'm very grateful to UK 100 for one, for all you've done so far, but two, for today, for the pledge and the launch, which is an important next step. We're one of those 340 councils who declared a climate change emergency because we believe this is, significant not only for the planet, but for our small county of Warwickshire. It's absolutely vital. And, my view, I think Chris has actually said it very well, but my view is actually, how do I make Warwickshire the place that people want to be and feel confident to live in for their families, their businesses, etc. And it's really important that in place shaping, the local councils are looking forward, not just to the next year or two, which is difficult when you're managing budgets, but actually looking for the next 10 years and how what we leave as our legacy is going to be something that we can feel proud about, and that we can give confidence to our residents that we have their best interests in our hearts. And we've seen, the challenges, even in Warwickshire, we've seen the challenges around heat waves with high temperatures, fires and the likes of those, which have caused risk to our residents and to our areas. The threat to our infrastructure around flooding and around the assets and our economy. So it is with us, and we need also to ensure that when I leave Warwickshire, my legacy, not just to the generation I'm part of, but the next generation, I feel that hand on heart, I've done what I can for the best interests of them. So we take it very seriously, and we're very proud to have come together across all of our political groups to unanimously declare that climate emergency in 2019. And so that means we're committed, we're acting decisively. And so the next steps that we have taken about how we create a climate change policy and strategy with underlying plans that are realistic, but take people with us. They need to be challenging. They absolutely need to be challenging, but they also need to manage people as well, rather than frighten them away, because there is no point in creating division within our council or within our communities, because that's not going to take people, the vast majority of people, with us. It's just going to create, this political bouncing that we've seen. So we need to ensure that people see the reasons behind taking this policy. Many of them will be because they absolutely get that we are in emergency. They absolutely understand the evidence that we've been given. They absolutely understand that their families' lives and their quality are going to be impacted by that. There will be others, though, who feel very threatened by it, their businesses, their lives, and the doubters, I have to say. So how do we manage and take those people along with us? And in Warwickshire, we've taken a view that this is very much about creating a new opportunity for the county. It is about saying that our businesses are going to change. There is a business opportunity within the climate change agenda, and we definitely want to help our businesses, ourselves, and our residents to take part in that, to create the businesses of the future, which will help us to drive down those emissions and increase the biodiversity in our county, and to make sure that they all feel as engaged as we would want them to be. Even down to linking with our towns and our parish councils on a regular basis. And I have to say, COVID has been fantastic at that, because it's created these online events. So we can link with our parish town councils and wider communities to help them to understand what we're doing and how they can meet our agenda as well. So we do that on a sort of pretty regular basis, bi-monthly. But as well as that, you know, I mean, down to literally, I've been at a parish council this week where we have been talking about climate change. We've been talking about no mow May, hedgerows, trees, and the biodiversity risks that our communities face. So really trying to send the messages that every single person can be part of a team that tries to change what we're doing in Warwickshire. And, you know, just by changing what we're doing in our small part of Warwickshire, we start to create a movement, which I think is thoroughly exciting. And I hope too that our residents feel that they're part of it. And, you know, in a church hall with 60 people who are excited by that, I have confidence that this is going to be something that isn't going to be a critical factor that people feel threatened by, but is something that they feel they can engage in. And that surely is the message that we, as politicians, be they national politicians or be they local politicians, have got to try and get across. And I think, you know, if we just look at, you know, my grandchildren and the next generation, you know, schools get this. I have every confidence that schools absolutely understand this. I think the area that we are really trying to get the message across to in a more challenging way is probably business, who feel that they've got to put a lot of money into this. And I think in local government, we can help. We've created grants that we can help business to look at their carbon emissions and trying to help them to make the next step change. Very much easier with bigger business who have more resource available, but small businesses don't have that. And if you can help them to think about what their footprint is looking like, then I think they may well find that hand holding will help them too to get to the place that we think it would be better to be. But I really do stress, I've got people in my group, people in my council that are at different ends of this mission. You know, they are threatened, anxious, and the trick for me as a leader, and I suggest to all of you in your roles, is that you need to take people with you. You don't need to chastise them, and you don't need to push them out on the boundaries, because if they're out on the boundaries, they will not be participants in this agenda that we need to get to. We need people with us, not against us. So for me, it's always been about how do we take people on the journey? How do we allow them to feel that they have a small role? And that way we can drown out some of the bigger noises that are trying to misinform our residents. I hope that gives you a picture of our journey in Warwickshire. We have a mission which is set at 2030 for our own emissions within the council, and we want to try to get Warwickshire into a better place by 2050. Now, that may seem too late, but the reality is I want to give people a manageable target, which I hope we can bring forward. And I hope too that you all will be on this same journey with us, because you know, it is an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Izzi, and thank you for the leadership you've shown in Warwick.
Really, really interesting discussion, and I'm sure we could have gone on for hours. You know, we are in fact working with a company that is helping us to identify hotspots of our footprint area in different departments and challenging those departments to see what they can do to make changes to make that better. And not only can we do that within our own organisation, which drives down those energy costs and makes improvements and savings, but it's also our opportunities to work with schools and to help them to identify their carbon footprint, to bring down those costs themselves. And school budgets are just as tricky as our own budget. So, you know, this is a goal that's worth achieving, not just because it is worth achieving, but because it's going to help your budgets. So, you know, it's back to how do you take people with you on this journey? And there's some really great opportunities. We created a grant fund for communities called our £1 Million Green Deal that they could bid into to show what they could do in their own area and engage the wider local community into trying to find ways of improving their biodiversity, or whatever ideas they came forward, on the basis that we don't know everything, but our local communities know quite a lot themselves, and they know they want to see change. So how do you help local communities to make that change? How do you influence our business sector and create jobs? And there was a question, an important question, about having skills for the future. And, you know, in my council, we have just created a level 2 Devo deal, which gives us all the skills funding, and that's really helpful. So there's much opportunity, and I'm quite excited by it. I don't think we want to be, you know, down on ourselves that there isn't an opportunity because we haven't got the funding. We can be creative. We can find ways of doing this, and, you know, where there really is a will, I think we will find a way.
Thank you very much, Izzi, and thank you for agreeing to be part of the panel at this launch webinar. Thank you all for attending. We've run out of time. I'm afraid we won't get round to all of the questions put in the chat, but it's great to see so much debate and engagement and discussion so early in the morning on a Thursday. So 3 takeaways for you as we wind up this webinar. One is do read the report. The link should be in the chat, but will be available on both of our websites, so please do look at that. Think about signing the pledge if you are a councillor or a person seeking elected office. We want to get as many people committed to that better climate debate as possible. Share the pledge in your networks, share it far and wide. The more people that we have on this journey, the better the transition will be, the better the benefits for our communities. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we hope to see you soon.